In urban slums across Africa and Asia, there exists a growing method so efficient that one discarded tire produces 10 kilograms of peanuts. No traditional soil needed, no chemical fertilizers required, no agricultural land necessary. Just a tire, organic waste, and water-producing protein-rich food that could feed a family for months. The method converts garbage into food. Old tires destined for landfills become vertical growing containers. Kitchen scraps and yard waste replace expensive soil. Rainwater provides irrigation. The system costs essentially nothing while producing yields matching commercial agriculture. One tire in a small yard grows enough peanuts to provide significant household protein. Stack multiple tires vertically, and production multiplies without requiring additional ground space. Apartment balconies become food production systems. Abandoned urban lots transform into protein farms. Food security becomes achievable for anyone with discarded tires and organic waste. And across the developed world, this method is actively discouraged by authorities. Municipal codes prohibit tire gardening. Agricultural extension services never mention it. Environmental agencies classify used tires as hazardous waste requiring special disposal, not because the method doesn't work, because it threatens agricultural, tire disposal, and food distribution industries worth trillions of dollars globally. In 1998, residents of Rio de Janeiro's favelas faced severe food insecurity. Limited income, no agricultural land, expensive food prices, malnutrition was common despite living in major city. Maria dos Santos, a favela resident, observed that plants grew vigorously in trash piles containing organic waste. She wondered if controlled planting could produce food intentionally, but she had no garden space, no money for soil or containers. She noticed discarded tires everywhere. Favelas were dumping grounds for Rio's tire waste. The tires sat abandoned, breeding mosquitoes, creating hazards. Maria saw potential growing containers. She filled one tire with kitchen scraps and yard waste, let it decompose partially, planted peanut seeds in the organic matter, watered with collected rainwater, expected modest results at best. The peanuts grew vigorously, roots penetrated the decomposing organic matter, found nutrients. The tire's circular shape created ideal microclimate. Black rubber absorbed solar heat. Warm root zone accelerated growth. Harvest came 4 months later. Maria dug into the tire expecting a handful of peanuts. Instead, found over 8 kilograms of mature peanuts. More protein than her family could grow in traditional garden using purchased soil and fertilizers. Word spread through the favela. Others tried tire gardening. Results were consistent, 10 to 12 kilograms of peanuts per tire. The method worked reliably regardless of gardeners' experience. Nutritional analysis showed the peanuts were identical to commercially grown varieties. Protein content normal, no contamination from tire materials. The rubber didn't leach harmful compounds into edible portions. Brazilian agricultural researchers studied the method, documented yields, analyzed safety, confirmed that tire gardening produced safe, nutritious food efficiently. Then the research stopped. Government agencies began discouraging tire gardening, cited environmental concerns about tire disposal, never acknowledged the food security benefits. The tire method's revolutionary aspect was vertical stacking. Multiple tires stacked created production tower using minimal ground space. One tire occupied roughly 4 square feet, produced 10 kilograms of peanuts, but stacking 5 tires vertically used the same 4 square feet while producing 50 kilograms. The productivity per square foot increased 5-fold. Urban spaces with severe land constraints could produce substantial food. A small balcony holding tire tower could grow annual family protein supply. Apartment dwellers achieved food production previously requiring rural farmland. The stacking mechanics were simple. Fill bottom tire with organic waste and peanut seeds. Water until established. Add second tire on top. Fill and plant. Repeat. Each tire became independent growing zone and vertical column. Root systems didn't interfere between levels. Each tire contained separate root zone. Plants in different tires didn't compete. The vertical separation allowed much denser planting than ground gardening. Watering was efficient. Water applied to top tire percolated down through stack. Lower tires received drainage from above. Minimal water was wasted. The vertical system conserved water compared to traditional gardening. Harvest was sequential. Bottom tire matured first, could be harvested and removed. Remaining tires settled down, new tire added on top. Continuous production from same footprint. The implications for urban food security were revolutionary. Cities could produce protein-rich food within their boundaries. Transportation costs eliminated, food miles reduced to 0. Urban populations could achieve partial food sovereignty. But this threatened agricultural and food distribution industries. Their business models required centralized rural production and long-distance transportation. Urban food production eliminated their role. The industry couldn't allow tire gardening to spread. Tire gardening converted 2 waste streams, discarded tires and organic refuse, into valuable food. This waste-to-food conversion threatened multiple industries profiting from disposal and agriculture inputs. Kitchen scraps, normally destined for landfills, became growing medium. Vegetable peelings, coffee grounds, eggshells, spoiled food, all had value in tire gardens. Families stopped paying for waste disposal while creating food production inputs. Yard waste from lawn maintenance filled tires effectively. Grass clippings, leaves, small prunings, materials people typically bagged and discarded. The organic matter that cost money to dispose of became valuable agricultural resource. The decomposition process created ideal growing conditions. Bacteria and fungi broke down organic materials, released nutrients gradually, created rich humus. The biological activity generated heat. Warm root zone extended growing season. No purchased inputs were required, no soil, no fertilizers, no amendments. The system was completely self-sufficient. Started with garbage, ended with food. The economics were revolutionary. Negative input costs, turning waste into valuable production. Nitrogen fixation from peanuts enhanced the system further. Peanuts as legumes formed relationships with rhizobia bacteria. These organisms captured atmospheric nitrogen, converted it to plant-usable forms. The tire gardens fertilized themselves biologically. The used tires themselves cost nothing. Tire shops paid disposal fees to remove old tires, would gladly give them to anyone wanting them. The primary growing container was free negative cost item. Water came from rain collection. Simple systems captured roof runoff, stored it for garden use. In areas with adequate rainfall, purchased water was unnecessary. Total input costs approached zero. Complete food production system for materials considered worthless or problematic. The economic model inverted normal agriculture. Profit from waste elimination plus food production rather than cost of inputs plus uncertain yields. But this threatened waste disposal industry, collecting fees for tire and organic waste removal, threatened agricultural input suppliers selling soil, fertilizer, and containers. The industries couldn't allow waste-to-food systems undermining their revenue streams. Peanuts were specifically chosen for tire gardening because protein content and growth characteristics matched urban food security needs perfectly. Protein concentration in peanuts is exceptional, 25 to 30% protein by weight, higher than most plant sources. Comparable to lean meats, 10 kilograms of peanuts provided 2 to 3 kilograms of pure protein, enough for one person for months. The protein quality is complete, contains all essential amino acids. Digestibility is excellent. Protein from peanuts supports human nutrition as effectively as animal protein. Urban populations could obtain adequate protein without access to meat. Caloric density is high. Peanuts provide substantial calories from protein and healthy fats. Energy-dense food from small space, crucial for food security in land-limited environments. Storage stability is remarkable. Properly dried peanuts store for years without refrigeration. Urban families without cold storage could maintain food reserves. The shelf stability provided true food security. Production today, feeding family months later. Growing characteristics suited tire method perfectly. Peanuts develop underground. The vertical tire depth accommodated peanut development. Harvest was simple. Dump tire contents and collect peanuts. No digging required. Soil requirements were minimal. Peanuts tolerated the decomposing organic matter in tires. Actually thrived in loose material, allowing easy root and peg penetration. The organic waste that wouldn't support many crops was ideal for peanuts. Pest resistance was decent, fewer pest problems than many vegetables. Reduced need for pest management in urban settings, simplified production for inexperienced growers. Yield reliability was consistent. Peanuts produced adequately, even in suboptimal conditions, provided reliable production for urban gardeners without agricultural expertise. The success rate meant tire gardening worked for anyone willing to try. But peanut protein production threatened agricultural protein industries. Meat, dairy, and soy protein markets all faced competition from urban peanut production. The industries couldn't allow distributed protein production challenging centralized agriculture. Tire gardening enabled urban food sovereignty that directly threatened the entire food distribution infrastructure, connecting rural agriculture to urban consumers. Current food systems depend on long supply chains. Rural farms produce food. Processors handle it. Distributors transport it. Retailers sell it. Each step adds cost. Urban consumers pay multiples of farm gate prices. Tire gardening eliminated entire chain. Urban residents produced food where they consumed it. No transportation, no warehousing, no retail markup. The cost savings were substantial, protein at production cost rather than retail prices. Food miles dropped to zero. Environmental impact from transportation disappeared. Refrigeration needs reduced, packaging eliminated. The sustainability improvements were comprehensive. Supply disruption resilience improved dramatically. Urban tire gardens continued producing during strikes, fuel shortages, or infrastructure failures. Cities dependent on constant food imports were vulnerable. Cities producing food locally gained resilience. Employment patterns shifted. Home food production reduced income needed for food purchases. Urban poor could survive on lower cash incomes. Dependency on formal employment decreased. This threatened economic structures requiring urban populations remaining dependent on purchased food. If people fed themselves, they needed less money, required less employment, had more economic freedom. The implications terrified those profiting from urban dependency. Food retailers, distributors, and processors all lost when urban populations produced rather than purchased protein. Government tax revenues declined. Less food purchased meant less sales tax collected. Less income needed meant less income tax paid. Urban food sovereignty reduced government revenue. Social control mechanisms weakened. Populations feeding themselves were less controllable. Food dependency was subtle but effective control mechanism. Self-sufficient populations were harder to manage. The tire gardening method demonstrated that urban food sovereignty was achievable. This couldn't be allowed to spread. The entire economic system depended on urban populations remaining food dependent. The tire disposal industry generates billions annually from collection, transportation, and processing of used tires. Tire gardening threatened to eliminate this revenue stream completely. Approximately 1 billion tires reach end of life annually in the United States alone. Disposal fees range from $2 to $10 per tire. The revenue from collection and disposal exceeds $5 billion annually. Tire gardens converted disposal problem into valuable resource. Tires that would have been collected for fee instead became free food production inputs. Each tire diverted to gardening eliminated disposal revenue. If tire gardening became widespread, disposal industry would collapse. Millions of tires annually would never enter disposal stream. Collection and processing infrastructure would become unnecessary. The industry couldn't allow this. Environmental regulations supported disposal industry interests. Used tires were classified as problematic waste, requiring special handling. Regulations created markets for disposal services, made tire reuse difficult through permitting requirements. Tire gardening was specifically targeted. Regulations prohibited tire use for food production in many jurisdictions, cited unspecified contamination risks, never provided evidence that tire materials migrated into food crops. The industry funded research designed to create doubt, studies looking for chemical transfer from tires to plants. When transfers were minimal and didn't reach edible portions, results were ignored. When any compound was detected, it was publicized as proving tires were unsafe. Alternative tire reuse was actively discouraged. Playground surfaces, erosion control, construction materials, any reuse reducing disposal stream faced resistance. Tire gardening faced strongest opposition because food production application was most compelling. Municipal contracts ensured steady disposal revenue. Cities paid disposal companies regardless of tire volume. If tire gardening reduced volume, cities still paid. Disposal companies profited from guaranteed contracts while opposing reuse. The industry lobbying prevented tire gardening from becoming accepted practice. Regulations remained restrictive. Public reception stayed negative. The food security solution remained marginalized. City governments worldwide have enacted regulations specifically prohibiting or severely restricting tire gardening. These ordinances serve industry interests rather than public welfare. Zoning ordinances classify tire gardens as nuisance or blight, prohibit visible tire use in residential areas, require removal upon complaint. Violations result in fines and forced compliance. The justification is aesthetic. Tires are considered unsightly, detract from property values, create visual pollution. Never mind that ornamental gardens and lawns provide no food while tire gardens provide protein. Health department regulations cite unspecified contamination risks, prohibit tire use for food production without providing evidence of actual harm. The precautionary principle is selectively applied. Tire gardens banned while actual environmental hazards are ignored. Solid waste regulations classify used tires as special waste, require permits for accumulation, restrict quantities that can be stored, make tire gardening legally complicated or impossible. Fire codes cite tire combustibility. Limit tire storage in urban areas. Ignore that tire gardens contain soil and moisture, making fire risk minimal. Regulations are applied selectively to discourage food production. Building codes may classify tire structures as unpermitted construction. Require building permits for stacked tire gardens. Create bureaucratic obstacles discouraging home food production. The pattern is global. Different jurisdictions use different justifications. But outcome is consistent. Tire gardening is prohibited or restricted. Urban food sovereignty is prevented through regulation. The regulations protect established interests, food distribution companies, waste disposal firms, agricultural input suppliers. Each benefits from tire gardening remaining prohibited. Public health and safety could be served by reasonable guidelines. Allow tire gardening with basic safety requirements. But current regulations ban the practice entirely. This reveals that industry protection rather than public safety is the true goal. Agricultural extension services worldwide refuse to provide information on tire gardening despite documented effectiveness. The silence serves industry interests controlling agricultural education. Extension services are supposed to help people grow food, share effective techniques, provide unbiased information based on research. Their mission is serving agricultural producers and home gardeners. Yet, tire gardening is never mentioned in extension publications. Growing guides don't include it. Vegetable production recommendations ignore it. the most efficient protein production method for urban areas, is completely absent from extension materials. Master gardener programs train volunteers to advise home gardeners. Tire gardening isn't in their curriculum. Certified master gardeners know nothing about method producing more protein per square foot than any technique they're taught. Questions about tire gardening receive dismissive responses. Extension agents cite environmental concerns or contamination risks, can't provide specific evidence, just general discouragement. The pattern suggests coordinated suppression rather than independent evaluation. The silence is particularly notable given Extension Service's historical role promoting home food production. Victory gardens during wars, home vegetable gardening during economic downturns. Extension actively taught efficient food production. But tire gardening isn't promoted despite being more efficient than methods Extension does teach. The selective exclusion reveals outside influence controlling what information Extension Services share. Funding sources explain the bias. Agricultural Extension receives support from agricultural input companies, fertilizer manufacturers, seed suppliers, agricultural chemical producers. These sponsors wouldn't approve tire gardening education, eliminating need for their products. University Extension Services face similar constraints. Agricultural colleges receive industry donations, research grants from ag business. These relationships create conflicts, preventing objective evaluation of techniques threatening industry interests. The result is information control. Home gardeners are kept ignorant of tire gardening despite its advantages. Knowledge serving people's food security is suppressed, serving corporate profits. Environmental agencies oppose tire gardening while allowing tire disposal practices far more environmentally harmful. The selective concern reveals industry protection rather than genuine environmental stewardship. Used tires and landfills create serious environmental problems. Don't decompose, trap methane, create vector breeding sites, leach chemicals into groundwater. Landfill disposal that agencies approve is demonstrably harmful. Tire incineration for energy recovery releases toxic compounds. Air pollution from tire burning includes heavy metals and carcinogenic compounds. Yet this disposal method has environmental agency approval. Tire-derived fuel burned in cement kilns and power plants creates emissions. The environmental impact is significant, but tire incineration continues with regulatory blessing. Tire gardens pose minimal environmental risk by comparison. Tires remain intact, no combustion, no breakdown releasing compounds. Plants don't absorb tire materials into edible portions. Studies show negligible chemical transfer. If environmental protection was genuine priority, agencies would promote tire reuse, preventing disposal problems. Tire gardens keep tires out of landfills while producing food. Environmental benefit is clear, but agencies oppose tire gardening while permitting harmful disposal. The inconsistency exposes that industry protection, not environmental concern, drives policy. Regulatory capture explains the hypocrisy. Tire disposal industry has regulatory influence, funds studies, provides technical input on regulations, effectively controls policies affecting their business. Environmental agencies dependent on industry cooperation become advocates for industry interests. Regulations serve business needs rather than environmental protection. The result is policies preventing beneficial tire reuse while permitting harmful disposal. Urban food security solution is banned, while environmental damage is approved. The environmental movement's silence is equally revealing. Mainstream environmental organizations don't promote tire gardening despite obvious sustainability benefits. Industry funding influences environmental advocacy just as it influences regulation. Here's what they're never going to tell you directly. Tire gardening isn't forbidden because it's unsafe, isn't restricted because it's environmentally harmful. It's forbidden because it threatens too many industries simultaneously. One method challenges agricultural input suppliers, eliminates need for soil, fertilizer, and containers, threatens billions in annual sales. Tire disposal industry loses revenue from each tire diverted to gardening. Billions annually from disposal fees disappear if tires become food production tools. Food distribution systems lose when urban populations produce protein locally. No transportation, no warehousing, no retail. Trillions in economic activity threatened. Meat and commercial agriculture face competition from urban peanut production. Distributed protein production challenges centralized agricultural control. Municipal governments lose power when populations achieve food sovereignty. Food dependency is control mechanism. Self-sufficiency reduces governmental influence. Together, these interests ensure tire gardening remains suppressed. Regulations prohibit it. Extension services ignore it. Environmental agencies oppose it. Media never mentions it. The suppression works through aligned interests rather than conspiracy. Each industry protects itself. Together, they prevent tire gardening from spreading. But suppression is weakening. Social media shares information outside corporate control. International examples demonstrate effectiveness. Videos show tire gardens producing abundant peanuts. Every person who builds tire garden proves the system works, shows neighbors that food sovereignty is achievable. demonstrates that one tire can produce 10 kilograms of protein. That independence is exactly why tire gardening is forbidden. Why regulations restrict it. Why authorities discourage it despite obvious benefits. The method works too well, costs nothing, requires no expertise, threatens too many profits, can't be allowed to spread. This wasn't experimental agriculture. This was survival innovation tested by populations facing food insecurity. No agricultural land available, no money for inputs, just waste materials and necessity creating food production. Food security doesn't require farmland, doesn't require expensive inputs, doesn't require agricultural industry. One tire and organic waste produce protein when combined with knowledge. Brazilian favela residents knew this. Asian urban poor discovered it. Communities worldwide prove it works. For decades, in multiple countries, tire gardens have produced food. Modern industries made it forbidden through regulation and suppression. Every waste-to-food method banned is a market for agricultural products protected. Every urban food production technique prohibited is dependency maintained. But truth persists. Tire gardens still produce 10 kilograms of peanuts, still convert waste to food, still work despite being forbidden. The biology and physics haven't changed. I'll see you in the next video.